against him, saying they were never told of his diagnosis. Now, if they are successful in a lawsuit, they will join at least 5 people in the state of California who have used HIV disclosure laws, which is legal in 35 states and US territories. Now, to tell us more about HIV transmission and criminal law in South Africa, we're joined via Skype by Dr. Johanna Kehler, who is the National Executive Director of the AIDS Legal Network. Johanna, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning and thank you.
Now, Doctor, do we have such a law here in South Africa?
No, we don't. South Africa is not criminalizing the transmission and or exposure of HIV, which we need to remember, especially in times like these where the discussion around HIV criminalization is coming up again.
Why is that the case?
Because from a human rights framework and from a human rights response, we are very strong and committed to the criminalization of HIV exposure and transmission doesn't really fit into a human rights-based response to HIV for various reasons.
Mm-hmm. Now, victims in South Africa, what can they do if they find themselves deliberately exposed to the virus?
I think we need to put the question into a bit more into perspective, because we live, especially in South Africa, we live in a context where we have high rates of people living with HIV. We have high rates of people who not even knowing yet that we're living with HIV. That's why the constant call for increased access to HIV testing, etc. So it's really, I think, what needs to happen is the realization that it's a common responsibility. You cannot rely that your partner is disclosing his HIV positive status for reasons of stigma and discrimination, for reasons of fear of what's going to happen, or even in cases that the person does not know of their HIV status. And if we would criminalize HIV exposure and transmission in such a context, then we will we put extra barriers to access to treatment, to access to HIV testing, and we actually make it very, very difficult to ensure that people who live with HIV would access testing, would access treatment, and the 1990 is then becoming a reality of the far future.
Now, Doctor, if we don't have a law like that in place in South Africa, which other laws or current laws that we have must be amended or should be amended to allow for criminal conviction of non-disclosure of one's status to one's partner?
I do not agree that we need to have criminal laws for non-disclosure. Mm-hmm. Because that, as I already said, would increase not only, as it would decrease access to treatment out of fear that I then, knowing that I am living with HIV, become potentially legally liable for a lawsuit. But also we must not forget the situation that due to societal context, women are the ones first to know of their HIV positive status. The women will be the one most affected by these kinds of laws, while women at the same time have the least access to legal services as and when they might potentially get sued. And I also think non-disclosure, we must remember that based on our constitutional and legal framework, is a matter of individual choice.
Mm-hmm. So what is the answer then, Doctor, to this dilemma?
I think the answer is that we have to be more vigilant when it comes to HIV prevention. We have to be more vigilant when it comes to the realization that I am responsible to protect myself and not rely on my partner's disclosure for my own decision whether or not I am engaging in protected sex.
Doctor, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That was Dr. Johanna Kehler, the National Executive Director of the AIDS Legal Network, on the line.